What if I told you that your mind operates on a frequency that only 1% of the population can truly access? That the very thoughts racing through your consciousness right now might be evidence of a psychological phenomenon that Carl Jung spent decades trying to decode. Recent psychological research suggests that many of these rare minds cluster around specific cognitive patterns, particularly those that Jung himself would have recognized as fundamentally different from ordinary awareness. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll discover whether you possess one of the rarest mental architectures known to psychology. And trust me, the eighth sign will completely transform how you understand your own consciousness. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what happens when who you truly are operates on a wavelength that seems alien to everyone around you? What happens when your mind processes reality in ways that leave others confused, intimidated, or simply unable to follow your thought patterns? According to Jung, there exists a small percentage of individuals whose minds function in ways that are fundamentally different from the masses. These aren't just intelligent people. Intelligence is common. These are individuals whose consciousness operates in dimensions that most people can't even perceive, let alone understand. But here's what's fascinating, and I need you to pay close attention to this. Jung discovered that these individuals often don't even realize how unique their mental architecture truly is. They spend years feeling like outsiders, wondering why conversations feel shallow, why others seem to miss obvious connections, why their insights are met with blank stares or uncomfortable silences. Does this sound familiar? Keep watching, because we're about to explore the 8 definitive signs that your mind belongs to that exclusive 1%. Sign 1. You think in patterns and connections others miss. Carl Jung identified what he called introverted intuition, the rare ability to perceive the invisible threads that connect seemingly unrelated events, people, and ideas. If you have this type of mind, you don't just see individual puzzle pieces. You see the entire picture before most people even realize they're looking at a puzzle. Here's what's happening in your brain that's so different from the masses. While others process information in neat, separate categories, your mind operates like a vast web. Every new piece of information doesn't just get filed away. It gets instantly cross-referenced with everything you've ever experienced, creating connections that seem to come from nowhere. But here's the fascinating part that Jung discovered, and this might explain why you felt misunderstood your whole life. When you're listening to someone speak, your brain isn't just processing their words. You're simultaneously analyzing their emotional state, connecting their story to broader human patterns, predicting where their thoughts are heading, and understanding implications they haven't even considered yet. It's like you're watching a movie while everyone else is looking at individual frames. You can sense the plot twists coming not because of obvious clues, but because you feel the underlying rhythm of the narrative itself. According to Jung, this ability stems from your natural access to what he called the collective unconscious, a deeper layer of awareness that most people never tap into. You're not just thinking with your individual mind. You're thinking with the wisdom of human experience itself. This is why you might find yourself finishing people's sentences, not because you're rude, but because you can feel the direction their thoughts are flowing. It's why you can walk into a room and immediately sense the emotional undercurrents that others miss entirely. But this gift comes with a price, and it leads us directly to something even more profound about how your mind works. Sign 2. You experience reality in layers. Carl Jung said, your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. If you have this rare type of consciousness, you don't just look inside. You see inside, through, and beyond simultaneously. Most people experience life like watching a movie on a flat screen, but your mind processes reality like a 3-dimensional hologram. When someone tells you they're fine, you don't just hear the word. You perceive the micro-expression that contradicts it. sense the emotional weight they're carrying, and understand the deeper story their unconscious is desperately trying to communicate. This is what Jung called psychological depth perception, and it's exactly why 99% of people find your insights so unsettling. You're experiencing multiple layers of reality at once while they're stuck processing one dimension at a time. Here's what's truly remarkable about this ability. You don't just see these layers. You can translate between them. You naturally understand that what someone says isn't always what they mean, that behavior often masks deeper needs, and that the surface of any situation is just the beginning of the real story. This is why you might find yourself naturally drawn to metaphors and analogies when you communicate. Direct explanations feel flat to you because they can't capture the richness of what you're actually perceiving. You need symbols, stories, and imagery to convey the full dimensionality of your insights. Jung discovered that individuals with this rare cognitive pattern often become natural translators between the conscious and unconscious worlds. You can take the symbolic language of the psyche and make it accessible to those who only speak in literal terms. But this multidimensional awareness creates a hunger in you that most people can't understand, and it draws you toward aspects of human nature that others desperately want to avoid. Sign 3. You're drawn to the shadow side of human nature. According to Carl Jung, one of the most telling indicators of a rare mind is an irresistible fascination with what he called the shadow. Those hidden, darker aspects of human nature that most people spend their entire lives trying to ignore or deny. If you possess this type of consciousness, you don't just acknowledge that everyone has a dark side. You're genuinely compelled to understand it, not because you're twisted or morbid, but because your mind demands completeness. You can't be satisfied with half-truths about human nature. While others are comfortable labeling certain behaviors as simply evil or wrong and moving on, your consciousness needs to dig deeper. You want to understand the psychological mechanisms that drive destructive behavior, the childhood wounds that create adult monsters, and the social conditions that can turn ordinary people into something unrecognizable. This isn't about condoning harmful actions. It's about comprehending the full spectrum of human potential. And here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. This attraction to the shadow isn't a character flaw. It's a sign of psychological maturity and integration. You understand something that most people can't handle, that to truly know yourself and others, you must be willing to stare into the abyss. You're drawn to complex, morally ambiguous characters in stories, fascinated by true crime not for the shock value but for the psychological insights, and comfortable with conversations that make others squirm. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your mind naturally gravitates toward this process of illumination, while others remain terrified of what they might find in the shadows. This shadow work isn't just intellectual curiosity for you. It's a fundamental part of how you process reality. And it's directly connected to why communication feels so challenging for you. Sign 4. You feel like you're speaking a different language. Carl Jung identified a phenomenon he called psychological loneliness, the profound isolation that comes from speaking a language that others simply cannot understand. If you have this rare type of mind, you've probably spent countless conversations feeling like you're transmitting on a frequency that no one else can tune into. Here's what's happening when you try to communicate, and this will explain so much about your social experiences. Your mind naturally thinks in symbols, metaphors, and layered meanings. When you speak, you're not just sharing information. You're transmitting entire conceptual frameworks, emotional textures, and intuitive insights, all wrapped into what seems like a simple statement. But most people are only equipped to receive literal, surface-level communication. It's like you're broadcasting in high definition while everyone else only has basic radio receivers. They're getting static where you're sending symphonies. According to Jung, This communication gap isn't evidence that something's wrong with your thinking. It's proof that your consciousness operates at a frequency that transcends ordinary awareness. You're not speaking incorrectly. You're speaking a more sophisticated language. This is why you've probably found yourself constantly simplifying your thoughts just to be understood. How many times have you started to share an insight, seen the confusion in someone's eyes, and just said, "Never mind"? How often do you choose silence because explaining your actual perspective would require too much context that others simply don't possess? You might gravitate toward written communication where you can craft your thoughts more carefully, prefer one-on-one conversations over group discussions, or find yourself expressing your deepest insights through creative mediums rather than direct explanation. But Jung understood something crucial. This communication challenge isn't a barrier to overcome. It's an invitation you're extending to others to expand their own consciousness. Your unique language is actually a gift, even when it feels like a curse. And this brings us to something that might completely surprise you about how your rare mind actually processes information. Sign 5. You're uncomfortable with pure logic. This might seem counterintuitive, but Carl Jung discovered that individuals with the rarest minds often feel deeply constrained by purely logical thinking. If you have this cognitive pattern, you don't reject logic. You recognize it as just one instrument in a much larger orchestra of understanding. While others rely on linear reasoning and step-by-step cause-and-effect thinking, your mind operates through what Jung called intuitive logic, a form of understanding that weaves together rational analysis, emotional intelligence, symbolic thinking, and unconscious wisdom into something far more sophisticated than simple reasoning. Here's why this makes you so incomprehensible to others, and why you might have felt frustrated your entire life. When faced with a problem, while others are creating neat logical sequences, your mind is processing multiple variables simultaneously. You're not just asking what makes rational sense. You're considering what feels aligned, what honors the complexity of the situation, and what serves the deeper truth of the matter. According to Jung, this isn't inferior thinking. It's integrated thinking. You haven't abandoned logic. You've embedded it within a more comprehensive framework that includes intuition, emotion, pattern recognition, and archetypal wisdom. This is why you might find yourself trusting gut feelings even when you can't explain them rationally, seeing flaws in arguments that are technically sound but somehow miss the essential point, preferring creative problem-solving to mechanical rule-following, and feeling frustrated by people who dismiss anything that can't be measured or quantified. But here's Jung's profound insight. This discomfort with pure logic isn't a weakness. It's evidence that your mind has achieved something most people never reach. You've learned to integrate multiple ways of knowing into a symphony of understanding, while others remain stuck playing single notes. Most people operate from either logic or emotion, thinking or feeling, rational or intuitive. Your rare mind dances between these modes, creating a harmony that sounds like chaos to those who can only hear one melody at a time. This integration of multiple ways of knowing leads us to perhaps the most socially challenging aspect of having your type of consciousness. Sign 6. You see through social masks effortlessly. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But what happens when you naturally perceive not just what irritates you, but the authentic human being hiding behind every social mask, every defensive behavior, every carefully constructed persona? If you have this rare type of mind, you don't just notice when someone is being inauthentic. You can see the exact mechanisms of their self-protection. You perceive the fears driving their behavior, the wounds they're trying to heal, and the genuine person struggling to emerge from beneath their psychological armor. This ability is simultaneously a profound gift and an exhausting burden. While most people accept social interactions at face value, your mind is constantly reading the subtext. You're noticing micro-expressions that contradict spoken words, sensing emotional undercurrents that others miss entirely, and understanding the deeper psychological dynamics at play in every interaction. According to Jung, this perception stems from your natural access to what he called active imagination, the ability to see beyond the literal surface of reality into its deeper psychological truth. You're not just observing behavior, you're witnessing the inner world that creates that behavior. But here's what makes this truly extraordinary. You don't just see through masks. You understand why people need to wear them. You recognize the protective function of personas, the vulnerability that lies beneath defensive patterns, and the universal human need to feel safe and accepted. This is why you might find yourself naturally becoming a confidant to others, even when you never intended to take on that role. People sense that you see them, really see them, in ways that others don't. You feel exhausted by social situations where everyone is performing, preferring authentic, vulnerable conversations to small talk, and sometimes knowing more about someone's inner state than they know about themselves. But Jung identified a profound challenge that comes with this ability. When you can see through everyone's masks, you become acutely aware of just how much performance surrounds you every day. This creates a unique form of isolation that leads us to perhaps the most difficult aspect of having your type of consciousness. Sign 7. You experience existential loneliness. Carl Jung discovered that individuals with this rare cognitive pattern often experience what he called existential loneliness, a profound sense of being alone with the vastness of existence itself. If you have this type of mind, you've probably felt this deep, soul-level isolation that has nothing to do with how many people surround you. You can be in a crowded room and still feel like you're the only member of your species on the planet. This isn't social anxiety or depression. It's the weight of consciousness that has expanded beyond the conventional boundaries of everyday awareness. Here's what's happening at the deepest level of your psychology. Your mind naturally gravitates toward the ultimate questions. Why do we exist? What's the meaning of suffering? How do we reconcile the beauty and tragedy of human experience? While others are content living on the surface, your consciousness demands engagement with the fundamental mysteries of existence. According to Jung, this existential orientation isn't morbidity. It's evidence of psychological depth and spiritual maturity. You're not satisfied with shallow answers, because your mind is built for authentic understanding, not comfortable illusions. But here's the isolating reality. When you try to share these existential insights and questions with others, they often respond with discomfort, dismissal, or attempts to redirect the conversation back to safer, more practical matters. They're not equipped to handle the depth of what you're grappling with every day. This is why you might find yourself feeling most understood by books, art, or music rather than people. Why you search for meaning in experiences that others take for granted. Why you question societal assumptions that everyone else accepts without thought. Why you sometimes feel like you're observing human civilization from the outside, wondering how everyone seems so content with explanations that feel fundamentally incomplete to you. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what happens when who you truly are seems to exist in a dimension that others can't perceive? This existential loneliness isn't a flaw in your psychology. It's evidence that your consciousness has touched something vast and profound. And this profound awareness naturally leads you toward the final and most transformative sign of your rare consciousness. Sign 8. You're naturally drawn to transformation. Carl Jung discovered that the rarest minds are magnetically drawn to what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are through continuous psychological transformation. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, you might be one of those extraordinary individuals who embodies what Jung called the introverted intuitive. Someone for whom transformation isn't just personal growth, but the very essence of being alive. If you have this type of consciousness, you don't just want to improve yourself. You feel called by something deeper than conscious will to completely transform who you are. You're drawn to experiences that break you down and rebuild you, that shatter your assumptions about reality, that force you to confront the deepest, most hidden aspects of your psyche. Here's what makes this so extraordinary and why it absolutely terrifies most people. While others seek stability, predictability, and comfort, your mind craves the chaos of metamorphosis. You're not afraid of psychological death and rebirth because you understand that this is how authentic evolution occurs. You know that who you were yesterday must die for who you're becoming tomorrow to be born. According to Jung, this attraction to transformation is the hallmark of what he called the individuated person. Someone who has integrated their conscious and unconscious minds, embraced both their light and shadow, and become psychologically complete. But here's the profound insight that Jung discovered. This transformational process isn't something you choose. It chooses you. You're not deciding to go through intense periods of change and growth. You're being called to it by something that operates beyond your rational mind. This is why you might find yourself repeatedly drawn to experiences that others would avoid, naturally seeking out challenges that force evolution, feeling restless and suffocated when life becomes too comfortable or predictable, and understanding that crisis often precedes breakthrough. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Your rare mind doesn't just accept this challenge. It embraces transformation as the fundamental purpose of existence. Most people spend their lives avoiding change, clinging to familiar patterns, and resisting the call to become who they're meant to be. Your consciousness operates from the understanding that transformation isn't something that happens to you. It's something you actively participate in as a co-creator of your own becoming. The truth about your rare mind. So there you have it. The 8 unmistakable signs that you possess a mind that 99% of people simply cannot understand. If you've recognized yourself in these patterns, you're not alone in your uniqueness. You're part of an invisible community of consciousness that Carl Jung spent his entire life studying and celebrating. But here's what I need you to understand. Your different mind isn't a burden to carry. It's a gift to the world. Jung discovered that individuals with this rare cognitive pattern often become bridges between the conscious and unconscious worlds, translators of the symbolic language of the psyche, and catalysts for transformation in others. There's an invisible network of rare minds scattered across the world, each one grappling with similar experiences, each one contributing to the evolution of human consciousness in their own irreplaceable way. Your mind isn't a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived, a gift to be shared, and a doorway to deeper understanding for anyone ready to step through it. The question isn't whether you have one of these rare minds. If you've stayed with me through this entire exploration, you almost certainly do. The question is, what will you do with this understanding? How will you honor the unique gift of your consciousness while finding ways to connect with others who may not speak your language but could benefit from your insights? Carl Jung discovered that the rarest minds often become the most important bridges between worlds. Your different perspective isn't a barrier, it's a doorway. And humanity desperately needs people who can open doors that others don't even know exist. If you've found value in this exploration of your unique mental architecture, consider subscribing to the channel to dive deeper into the psychology of rare minds and consciousness. There's so much more to discover about how your brain works. Remember, your journey of understanding yourself and sharing your unique gifts with the world is just beginning.